I hear what you're saying. And the core is, on the ground, this thing is going to affect lives.
It's going to kill people.
Wow. Oh.
So Joe worked with AMPATH. So AMPATH is this consortium of medical schools, both Moy University, which is here in Eldoret, and then North American institutions that were partnering together to create this program. And remarkably, like, we've gotten to partner with them for the last 20 years. Like, we informally initially, and then over time, like, just continue to really work together to try to see how to assist the community. But the funding for that program primarily came from USAID and PEPFAR.
Wow.
So
Wow.
George Bush, the younger, in 2000, I think it's 2003, really a bipartisan support, which is very rare in US politics, like supported.
And just for the sake, again, bipartisan means both parties coming together and agreeing.
Both Democrats and Republicans came together to support this funding for global HIV. And they called it the President's Emergency Fund for HIV and AIDS.
So that's PEPFAR now.
PEPFAR. Mm-hmm. So it started in 2003 and continued until this last month.
Okay. Let's enter that just now, just because you see you're on the ground. I know from the element of President Trump stopping the funding, the reasons is that there's a lot of wastage and all those things. While that may be true, on the other end, there's what you're saying. That you, and we like using this word in Kenya, kwa ground. Kwa ground means you are on the ground.
And qua ground, like, I can't speak for the whole world, but what I can say is for Western Kenya, I have been a witness to the most incredible work that has been so transformative, has been so reliable, has changed, like, the trajectory of people's lives. I mean, I have watched people who were so near death come back to life and now live. And so I think it's so interesting, like, how deeply I feel the loss, because it's not me, but it's like we have been on this journey for 20 years and we have watched its impact. To think of it going away, to think of what's going to happen, and I don't want to give too much power to, like, it has to be the US to fund it. Like, first of all, I mean, I am grateful and will ever be grateful for USAID and for PEPFAR. And I can't speak to, like, where there might be some level of corruption. What I know is that I have watched its effectiveness, and it going away feels devastating. And it feels like we've come way too far to let it just go away. And I don't mean that from a funding, I mean the treatment. Like, in January when this all came down, like, it's the first time in 20 years, like, I felt what I felt in 2004.
Wow.
I felt this, like people are gonna die and they don't have to die. And it's the first time I felt it, like, since, it's the first time I felt it, like, in that level in a really, really long time. Because I do hospice work. Like, I am fully, like, invested in caring for people with end-of-life care. But what is not okay is for us to treat a disease that's treatable like it's not. And to let these kids who, from the time they were little, like, we've given them this medication. I've watched them grow up. And now, what are we going to tell them? And also, like, pregnant women, like, we've worked so hard to prevent mother-to-child transmission. like the medication is going to run out. So it's like, again, like I am grateful for what PEPFAR was and possibly still could be. Like, but I also know there is a gap and there is a very small window before mutations in this virus, like the virus is going to know that it's no longer covered with medication and it will exploit that. And we will have a mutated virus that will not respond to treatment in the same way.
Wow. There's been a tap that's been flowing for the last 20 years, and people have been drinking from that tap. And they know that tap is now off.
And I heard someone recently say, you know, like that tap was the US's Matthew 25 to the world. Now, the US, like whether it's a political responsibility or a church responsibility, and I don't mean like just an American church, I mean like if we are not paying attention to what is currently happening and what will follow, like it is going to be so massive and preventable. And that's where I think I feel a grief. I feel like this desire for justice and mercy and humility to find a way. Like, and if it needs to be like internal, like let's let it be. Like if there's innovation, if there's creativity, if the Ministry of Health can take it up, like there's got to be supply chains. There has to be like reliability. Like we can't have certain drugs missing and this work. Like it has to like have.
It needs to continue.
It needs to
Or
continue.
improve, but not stop. So,
And what I would really love is if the U.S. felt like it's time, like for like our priorities need to shift, that there was a scaling down so that it would give time for either other investors or Kenyan leadership. The larger continent it's gonna be across the continent, like the time to make those preparations. And that would feel just. Like it feels cruel in the way that like even certain medications are still in stock, but there wasn't.
the workers are not there.
Yeah.
So wow, it's too complex.
And you know, like I think that there are times too where if we're in certain positions, we can make decisions and not understand how they could directly impact on the ground. Qua ground, right? And then it's like, I can't defend an entire organization or nation, but what I can say is that I'm on the ground. We've been on the ground. We've been a witness to its value. And
these guys, even if it was available right now for sale, it's impossible. They don't have the money to buy these things.
And I think that there would be certain populations for sure who could, but a majority of the people that we're working with, like, it would be so hard to reliably be able to afford it. And then also like the supply chains, like USAID, they have negotiated rates on these drugs. They have procured them in large amounts over many years. Like there was a chain that allowed it to like get from wherever, India or wherever they made, like, so they could order the right amounts, know how much, like, and then to be able to get it down to the ground and have it available to the people. And what I can say is from the ground is like, there has been reliability. There's 127,000 people in this area who are on these drugs. There are children, there are adults, that if they don't have access to this, like what that will do to change their, like.
Has that started? Has the accessibility started? Or was the buffer?
So what is not clear is like there's still medicine right now, but the ordering that's already been interrupted. Like the funding has not upstream. There's been interruptions that will definitely trickle down, and it's unclear like how far down the line. So for our work at Living Room, like we don't receive USAID funding, but we are deeply impacted. It will be deeply impacted because of the work that we're doing when those interruptions come. And I believe that it's later this month that actually there's going to be a full review of whether to renew PEPFAR or not. So while there has been back and forth, initially there was executive order that all funding would stop, and then
It was a court case or something.
then there was this USAID with PEPFAR, that there would be an exemption, and then there was delays on whether that exemption actually applied, and then it went to the Supreme Court. So there's been a back and forth, and so one of the things of even knowing how to speak to it is from day to day it's not clear, and it feels on the ground and beyond just kind of chaotic in, okay, was it stopped? Is it continuing? And this kind of a yo-yo of of even the
limbo,
and the emotions, and because there wasn't tapering or a handing over, then it's just created big challenges for, that's not even a right word, it's not even encompassing the gravity of what we're talking about.
I hear what you're saying. And the core is, on the ground, this thing is going to affect lives.
It's going to kill people.
Wow. Oh. Okay.
And it's going to change. So if there's not medications, also one of our greatest prevention efforts is the medicine. So while we would love for behavior to change, different people are at different places in their lives. But if people take the medicine, even if there isn't a lot of behavioral change, the medicine alone will suppress the virus so that transmission of the virus would reduce.
Wow.
So if we now have, in this area alone, I can't, I'm going to extrapolate it to within Kenya and beyond, within this area, if 127,000 people now have virus that is not suppressed, then the amount of new cases potentially, it would be great.
Let's take a break. We're coming back in a few. So we saw the outpatient wing. Now I want us to talk about this. What determines whether somebody, first of all, comes in here, who opened it, and you're going to walk us through this space. So I think let's start by what determines if somebody enters into this space.
So the patients, the guests who come in here, we have adults and children. There's 26 beds. So it's...
all ages.
All ages. And originally, most of our patients were children and 18 to 35.
Yeah.
So where traditionally in hospice, if it's not... So HIV is who the patients we were taking care of.
Also,
so it was younger.
Yes.
That's changed some at this point. But what I would say about it is that hospice, I love that the word hospitality is actually in it. It's telling us what it should be. That it should be a place of welcome. So we did a opening, even though the building wasn't totally complete, it had been set ahead of time, and how sometimes the construction has its delays, so it wasn't fully complete. But I remember the day, sitting out in the grass over here, was before all the trees were here, and to have friends and family and this community show up to celebrate a place where people would be able to run to, a place that could be a refuge for people who really needed it. And so we did that in 2011. And, I think it's remained that. It's remained true to the vision and to the core. So the people who typically come here, maybe patients with cancer, people living with HIV, there are people who are coming who need rehabilitation. So it's not all about end of life care.
Yes.
It's very much about like who could come from this community and need, like, if they've had a stroke, maybe they would need physical therapy, or maybe there was a child from somewhere around who has severe malnutrition and needs a space for a few weeks or a month to come and to be able to like receive the care that they need. So those are the things that we've really stuck to. So it's not, we're not doing deliveries here. It's not acute illness. It's more chronic illness as the patients that we've cared for here.
And usually, what's your occupancy like? How filled is it usually? Is there seasons?
Full.
Complete.
It's full, and then there's a waiting list.
What?
Yeah, and the people come from all over the country.
That's a thing that's mind blowing. The quality, and I really like about the detailed things that you talked about, and the hospitality. The quality is so high that you're getting people from not just this community who you created to serve. This space was created to serve that, to do away with the stigma and to bring solutions to people. But now it's gotten to the point where people are coming from, I was being told, Mombasa. That's...
So, and it's what led us to open a second facility that now has become a larger hospital. But the vision was like, we're full and there's still more work that we still want to do.
So right now there's a waiting list for people to come here. That means you're full to capacity. Okay. Walk us through this space.
Sure.
So this one, it was opened like this, to the glory of God.
So now we would say, to the glory of God and the love of our neighbors. That's how we put everything.
Okay.
Because we feel sometimes like the glory of God is like lifted up here, but it's not translated into the way that we interact with those around us.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's the love of our neighbors and our neighborhood. Like, what is God inviting us to do?
So let me just ask. So what would happen? A parent has no idea what to do with the child. So you're literally like the last hope for a lot of these people.
Yeah, there are families that call. There are different hospitals around that will call and say, we have a patient that Kimbilio would be the right place for. Do you have a space?
Yeah.
And so if there is, then we can bring them. There are social workers. The police sometimes will bring a patient here, or like if somebody's like a child's abandoned or something. Like, there's just been different things like that over the years that have been part of who we're taking care of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's walk on in. Lead the way.
Yeah. So we have 3 main wards, I would say. So this is our male ward. We have 8 beds here. One of our things is we're really committed to it being clean. So during the day, like as you see, most of the beds are empty. We take the patients, anyone who can and is willing, will take them outside to be in the garden space.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we have a pediatric space. It's okay. So we have, you can see from here, I think.
Yeah, we can.
So we have a pediatric space. And we take care of about 8 children at a time from here. And then we have a female space. So.
Wow. So let me ask, a situation like the child who's there, what care is being given to them? So what would be the issue like now?
It depends on who the child is. So we have several children who have cerebral palsy, who came to us with wounds that needed care or really severely malnourished, and so we can take care of it. It depends on the situation. There are some who the parents need a respite. There are others where the children have been abandoned. So the goal isn't to be a long-term care facility, but there's times where we need, like what's come in, it's like you can't plan extensively or fully for what it might become.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Keep walking us. I think that just sort of tugged my heart because I had a baby crying, and as a father of 2 daughters.
So actually the person who was crying there's a lady who she had come to us. She was on the streets in. She was on the streets and had some sort of mental break, and so she didn't speak. We didn't have any way to know her name or who she was. And she came, and we just began to love her little by little by little. So often she still doesn't speak, but what she does is she sings. She sings 2 songs repeatedly. So she sings in Swahili. She sings, "I'm so glad that Jesus loves me."
For real.
And then we have a drum that she beats, and she sings about the cross. And we just feel like, even though it's so hard, God sees her. And how can we affirm who she is, even though obviously there's so much brokenness in her body and her life. And so.
Okay. Walk us to the next place. How young is the youngest person?
We have a baby that's 9 months old. So you could probably film from just right here to get a view, and then I can walk us through without camera.
Okay. So just move it back so you don't get close-ups.
So we've worked really hard and partnered to be able to have the right kind of wheelchairs, and to be able to feed properly, and there's a lot of physical care that's done every single day. But one of the things that I feel so deeply is that there's a spirituality to the way that we provide care. If we bathe someone who they can no longer bathe themselves, then the way we do that, then that can be sacred to God.
Yeah.
Or if they can no longer feed themselves, then how we feed, I feel it can be holy, because if it's done with love, then that's what matters.
Even me standing here, it's ripping my heart in two. It takes a certain kind of grace to be able to do this. And the fact that you've dedicated your life to this, that's something.
But I've never
And
done
not
it
just you.
alone.
Exactly.
I've never done it alone. And I've done it within a community that it's not easy. But the things of Jesus are not, he came and he was willing to suffer. And so there's nothing that God is not familiar with that is experienced in this place. So whether that be, suffering or pain or grief or death and loss, Jesus was willing to come and do all of those things for us. And so the invitation is for us to come, and we can't fix all things. It's not even for us to carry all things. It's to trust that God is already here in this midst, in our midst.
Okay. Where do we go? I'm seeing beautiful greenery outside.
Yeah, I'm going to take you around to it.
Whose office is this?
This is our clinical team. So clinical officers, nurses, we have doctors who come weekly. We have, we have counselors, we have chaplains, we have a whole multidisciplinary team.
So it's not just the people in the physicality of healthcare, but also it's the psychological, the spiritual element about.
So we believe that we're not just treating a disease, we're caring for a person. So it's holistic care that looks at all of the different elements of physical, emotional, psychosocial, spiritual. And all of those things together is how we can provide care. Because at times, a mom can come and she's dying of cancer, and you're trying to treat her pain, you're looking at her physical, but if you ask her, what is important to you right now? She wants to know how her kids are. She wants to know if her kids have food for today. And so if we don't think about those children while we're taking care of her, then we're not actually addressing her goals of care. So those are the things that our whole team work together to do.
As we walk, do you have... Okay, first and foremost, this looks like a very costly affair. And I can imagine not everybody who's coming here, given the location, or you even told me people from across Kenya come, but healthcare is expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about pain management. Pain management for cancer patients, that is expensive. How are you able to pay for this?
Well,
You have 60 staff.
we do
Those
have
staff
60 staff.
need salaries.
They do. And I thank God for the last 15 years that we've never not paid them.
Wow.
You know, that there's been provision to do this work. Some of it is, a lot of it has been through donation. Some of it has come from profits from the funeral home. So the money that we raise from there comes back to care for patients. Like our vision, part of our mission is how do we do this sustainably so that it can carry on? I mean, it's Kenyan led and Kenyan run, so how could it be Kenyan funded also? So historically, the Ministry of Health doesn't fund, or like through NHIF or Shaw, doesn't fund hospice care.
For real.
So we're not reimbursed through the Ministry of Health for this work, but we believe that it matters. So we've just stayed committed towards how do we keep our costs as controlled and down. We know how much it costs to run this a day. So how do we do that? And then how do we either fundraise, like I would love for it to be within Kenya. How do we think about like what it would take to be able to run this in a way sustainably over time without excluding people who couldn't afford to come here? So that's always been really important, is we wanted people, whether they have financial resources or don't, that this would be a place they could run to and come to.
You didn't want to block people out depending on their how much they have in their pocket.
Because their value doesn't come from that. You know, like our deep conviction is that people were made in God's image, and I believe that healthcare should be a human right.
Yeah.
So I think so often, all over the world, I mean, both in Kenya and abroad, is that healthcare, the quality of your healthcare is based on how much you can pay, whether it be through insurance or cash. And I mean, as much as I believe like that it should be affordable, it should be accessible, like I also believe that geography should not determine whether you survive a disease process or not. Like if it's treatable somewhere, it should also be treatable here.
And again, accessibility to some of the medicines that you have. For example, if you're talking about cancer or pain management treatment, pain management medicines, medications, that's expensive, but even where you have to get them from.
So over the years, like we've developed our supply chains and who we're sourcing from, and we know the cost, and we plan for it. And like there are times where there have been stockouts, but we've worked really hard to be able to always have quality pain and symptom management to be available.
But when somebody walks in here, walks in or wheelchaired in here, or you don't know what they're about to have.
Well, and there are people who've come who they've not slept for a month because they're in such excruciating pain. And they may have even come from another hospital in here. And like, you can't ask them about, like, do you know Jesus? Like, it's so out of touch if like you're not willing to like clean their wounds, and if you're not willing to take care of their pain and do everything that you can to make them as comfortable and seen and known, like that's where it gives room for them to experience the love of God is like in that. I remember there was a time, there was a Muslim patient who came here, and he was just here for like a day, and I was greeting him, and he just told me, "You must have a really good God."
What?
And like, I feel like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every day of the year, like our team is showing up, and imperfectly, but like with our hearts, trying to live out this love that we believe that is available. And
more of these conversations are in the one-on-one session that I'm having with you, but I'd just like to know, about as we walk
Yeah.
to see the outside. I'd love to, I can imagine the relationships that are formed between the guests. I've learned they're not patients.
Yeah.
The guests and the staff. I mean, you become friends. That, if one of them transitions to the next life, that must be so gut wrenching. That must be, but that's what you are in the job of doing, ensuring that people still have dignity, even if it's at this stage.
Right. And the dignity is the word, it's like, because whether we do the care or not, they're still in that process of transition. They're still in the process of dying. And how can we make it sometimes easier, I guess? I don't know if that's the right word or not, but like to add dignity, to pay attention to the pain, to the symptoms that, can be addressed, but not just like from a physical place, but like maybe someone, like they have broken relationships with
Oh,
a
family.
parent
Yeah.
or a spouse or a child, and it's like that's the thing that they're focused on, is I know I'm going, how can I make this right? And so to
Wow.
have like even room for that is, and space, and like I think, because there's not so much space inside, like how could we create gardens with the land that we have to be able to create outdoor space for families to gather, for patients to bask under the shade where
Yeah.
you don't have to be inside and like on a bed, like there's room for people to come, and for those who want to be able to be in the garden throughout the day.
I love the fact that, I mean, even now there are so many people who are outside getting some vitamin D.
Right.
I was in Estonia a couple of days ago, and I've really come to value this thing called the
Right.
sun.
Well, and so there's an album that we're creating, a music album that's
Yes.
being created, and one of the songs on it is called
By Kanji and the rest
by
of the
Kanji
team.
and our team.
Uh-huh.
And the first song that was written, or one of the first songs, it's called Thank God for the Sun. And it's
Wow.
like 12 hours a day. 12 hours a day, every day of the year. I mean, for those of us who've lived outside of Kenya and, not further from the equator, like we know those days when it's really short sunshine. And to be able to have this as a resource, like, again, it's like one of the reliable things in a place where there's not a lot of reliability, but that sunshine every day, for patients, for our staff, like to get out of like the hospital space and to sit in beauty, to breathe, to like look to the sky, to touch the grass, to be reminded that we are still alive.
Every Sunday, living in the concrete jungle known as Nairobi City, I take my girls, 2 daughters, out for lunch, and my number one agenda is if we're going to a place, the place has to have grass. This thing that you're doing, or this thing that you've done, this space that you've created, feels so, and one of the places we go to is Zen Garden. It feels so zen. What I mean by that, it feels just, I don't know the word. I don't have the word, but I'm peaceful. It
Yeah.
feels like, yes, if I was to have my last days, this is the kind of space that I want.
And I would say
Surrounded
that,
by nature.
yeah, I would say that like David Tarus, again, his leadership is, what are the things we have? What are the resources that we already have? Like, this isn't just about like creating a well cut garden, but it's like we have grass, we have the
Yes.
sunshine, we have a blue sky, we have these things already. How do we like utilize the resources that we already have?
Yeah.
And I mean, I think there's an intention in that has,
Come,
created this.
guys, I want us to see this. Or do we start with this side?
This is great.
No. Again, completely thought out for the kids.
Yeah, for those
This,
who are able.
yes, this
for-
you didn't have, but this you made.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. So what's this space that we're going into now?
It's called a resource center. So for the kids who might be here for an extended period of time and need schooling,
Yeah.
or the guests who come and maybe they want to crochet or do beadwork or do art or music or all these different things.
Wow.
Oh, Dee. Sasa. Hi, I haven't seen you in a long time. How are you?